Clash Royale content creators are quitting, and it's all because of this. The Clash Royale developers have been ignoring player feedback for about as long as I can remember. Whenever the devs come up with a fun actual feature like star points, mastery, or even evolutions, they just abandon them altogether to add even more monetization rather than just make the core game actually enjoyable. Then, on February 9th, the CEO of Supercell lit a match, which ignited a spark in everyone. The players and creators had finally had enough. But to truly understand what's happening, let me take you back to June of 2023 when Clash Royale changed forever. This update brought the introduction of evolutions, and holy was this update controversial. The developers added 4 new evolutions, each of which boosted these cards to the top of the meta. The Skeletons, Firecracker, Royal Giants, and Barbarians. Now, you can probably guess what made this so controversial. Terrible balancing, and the $150 price tag behind them. The players kinda shrugged this off, because as pathetic as it sounds, people were just used to it at this point. If you were free to play, you were already at a massive disadvantage. Luckily though, there was only one evolution slot, and so few players actually managed to buy them at release because of the price tag, they weren't too crazy of a problem. Evolutions had something special though. They had hype. This hype was unreal, and the release trailer gained over 20 million views, becoming one of Clash Royale's most viewed videos on the channel. Clash Royale had been missing excitement for years. Matches were beginning to feel stale. But evolutions, they changed everything. Over time, the devs did balance evolutions and make them accessible for free-to-play players. They added and removed the season shop, rest in peace, but they also innovated, adding more fun and unique mechanics that added so much more to the depth of Clash's basic gameplay. While some thought they were gimmicky, it was clear Clash Royale had struck gold with evolutions. In 2025, Jinxie started streaming Clash Royale, and the game blew up overnight. Player counts skyrocketed, and suddenly if you weren't playing Clash, you were missing out. The Jinxie effect was real, and everyone was playing the game again. New players are going to the game, and old players are returning. Even content creators who've been playing and streaming for years started to see record numbers as Clash Royale broke $80 million in revenue. Everything was looking up. The players were happy, and I was genuinely excited for each update, even when all they were doing was adding new evolutions. Clash Royale was back on top, and it seemed like things could only continue to rise. During this peak in popularity, or second chance, you would think the developers would lock in and improve the game. But no. Instead, in December of 2025, we got multiple progression nerfs, the removal of books, and then worst of all, they added heroes. That's not all though. They also decided to add a new power level, betraying the remaining trust the community had with the devs. This was when it became clear that they truly didn't care. Content creators spoke up, saying they disliked the change, and even warned Supercell. The game was at its peak, and instead of trying to give the game a chance, the developers chose to just cash in. And in instant karma, the game fell off overnight. Players and content creators alike were done, and began to quit or move on to other games. Then, on February 9th, 2026, the CEO of Supercell added fuel to the fire by contributing Clash Royale's historic growth with the Michael Bolton collab and the talented Clash Royale dev team. There's just one tiny problem with that. It was the content creators like Boss, Ken, Invader, Abdob, and so many others who kept it alive over the game's most rocky time. And then it was Jinxie who brought the game back to the mainstream audience. Now, you don't have to like him, but the Jinxie effect is real. Whatever game he plays blows up overnight. Remember Geometry Dash? This was a slap in the face to these creators, and a lot of the game's biggest content creators decided to boycott Clash until the game was fixed. This would be done via progression buffs, the sidelining of heroes, and the return of Evos. The CEO of Supercell saw this and apologized. He gave credit to the content creators, which is great, but an apology and the devs fixing the game are two very different things. Do I think the CEO intentionally avoided the content creators? Honestly, no. I think he was probably spreading bad info about the Clash Royale devs. As well, they've really done nothing but try to kill the game every update with some stupid new cash grab. Well, I think this apology was genuine. It still doesn't fix the game, and content creators and even pro players are now leaving purely because of the introduction of heroes. Evolutions were used to resurrect cards that had fallen off. They allowed cards that were unplayable to become balanced through the introduction of fun new mechanics. A free-to-play player would get one guaranteed Evo every 3 months. but could get 2 in that time frame through the shards given in events. Heroes are, well, impossible to obtain, random, and even worse, you could get duplicates. Well, not anymore, but are we serious? Who even thought that was a good idea? But, well, why would the developers add heroes in the first place? Well, I think there's 2 options. It's either they were trying to recreate the hype for evolutions, but with a feature that anyone can tell you was obviously flawed, or they were just trying to cash in. It's impossible to know for sure, but it's probably the latter. At this point, I think the entire Clash Royale dev team only plays merge tactics, because honestly, this thing's been getting some great updates, but most people don't care about that. But that's not all. The developers actually responded, so here's what you need to know. On the 23rd, the devs will essentially be removing card duplicates until you have 16 max cards. Then the chance of getting duplicates will be cut by 90%. Then in March, there are going to be lucky chest buffs, new evolutions, and less hero slots. Well, kinda. There will now be 1 hero, 1 evo, and 1 wildcard slot. There's also a free hero, but I really don't care about that. There's just one problem with all these changes. The devs were essentially forced to do them. They didn't choose to make the game better. They didn't even bother listening until almost all their content creators were fed up and the majority of players had quit. Now, I hope we'll get more good changes in the next few updates, but I honestly think that this is all we're gonna get and they're just gonna go back to ignoring us. Now, you might not agree, but this game needs time, or at least players to ignore it until heroes are fully fixed, because there are no changes planned to make them weaker or even cyclable. And as much as it pains me to say it, I hope Jinxie doesn't come back just yet, because real change doesn't happen overnight.